Development Code with regard to Marylhurst. And Ms. Montague, I guess you're presenting for us, is that correct?
For a public hearing on ordinance number 2855, amending the Community Development Code, LOC Chapter 50, and the Marylhurst Area District Plan and Volume 2 of the Comprehensive Plan to add affordable multifamily housing as a permitted use in Subarea 1 of the CI Zone, and office uses as a listed use within the Marylhurst campus in LOC 50.11.06 Appendix F, and adopting findings. This is a land use request which involves the application of the criteria and standards that are listed in the staff report, which has been available. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the applicable criteria as listed in the staff report or such other criteria in the Lake Oswego Comprehensive Plan, land use regulations, or other land use regulations you believe may apply to this decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the council and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. And the failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to any proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow this council to respond to the issue will preclude an action for damages in circuit court. The hearings process will begin with a staff report, then testimony with the following time limits: 15 minutes for the applicant's presentation, up to 10 minutes for representatives of recognized neighborhood associations, homeowners associations, government agencies, or other incorporated public interest organizations, 5 minutes per individual, and 5 minutes for the applicant's rebuttal. That will be followed by deliberations and a potential decision by the City Council. Those time limits do not include time spent responding to questions from the City Council, and any person in attendance may cede his or her time for testimony to another person, but in no case will anyone's testimony be increased to greater than 10 minutes. Now, although this is a code and a comprehensive plan change, it in fact is being processed as a quasi-judicial proceeding as it involves a small set of tax lots. And for that reason, it's treated much like an appeal in that the City Council's review is confined to the record before the Planning Commission, and only persons who testified either orally or in writing before the Planning Commission may testify before the City Council. And further, no new evidence may be introduced, or no evidence that is not already in the Planning Commission record. And finally, the only issues that may be raised before the Council are issues that were raised before the Planning Commission with sufficient specificity to allow the Commission to respond to that issue. I'm now going to be asking Council about any issues in relation to ex parte contacts, bias, or conflict of interest. First, before I do so, with relation to bias, as you may know, we did have a written request from a participant that City Council members declare whether they have any affiliation with the Catholic Church or with the applicant. And just to clarify, there is no obligation just upon a request for anyone to declare any religious affiliations and so forth. Of course, if there's anything, including religious affiliation, that creates bias, then that should be declared. And bias in that case for land use proceedings means that because of that affiliation or leaning or whatever it may be, that you feel you are unable to make a decision in this case based only on the criteria that apply and on the facts. If that's the case, you make the declaration. Otherwise, there's no need to disclose anything else about those affiliations. So at this point, I would ask if any City Council member does wish to make a declaration in relation to ex parte contacts, bias, or conflicts of interest.
None.
And hearing none from the Council, is there anyone who wishes to challenge any City Council member's right to consider this application? And hearing no challenges, then, Mayor, we'd be ready for the staff report.
All right. Welcome, Ms. Montague, Mr. Farley, and Mr. Siegel, I guess, as well.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jessica Numonaloo, and I'm the project planner for this proposal. I do have a few slides to start out my presentation, so I'm just going to take a second here to share my screen. Okay, So I want to start off also by entering two new exhibits into the record that were submitted yesterday and today, both of which were forwarded to the council. The first is Exhibit F10, which is a written presentation by the applicant, and then also Exhibit G218, which was a comment in opposition to the proposal from Mark and Terry Stoser. The proposal before you tonight is our comprehensive plan and community development code, or I'll refer to that as CDC amendments that would allow multifamily residential use in the CI zone, but would be limited to sub-area 1 of the Marylhurst campus. And I have some maps here to help identify the location of the site. So this red outline area is sub-area 1 roughly of the campus. It's approximately 40 acres in size, and it takes access from Pacific Highway via Furman Drive. Pacific Highway is a major arterial street. To the north, I'm sure you're all familiar with the site. It contains Mary's Woods, which has a mix of continuing care retirement complex, single-family homes, convent and administrative buildings, as well as some limited commercial uses. The abutting properties to the south are in West Lynn, and they're all developed with single-family dwellings. Properties to the west across Highway 43 are zoned R10. They're in the city and are developed with single-family dwellings. And then, of course, we have Old River Road and the Willamette River to the east. The site contains 14 existing buildings, all of which were used by the previous Marylhurst University, which existed on the site for quite a long time. I'm sure you all know, the university ceased operations in 2018, and at that time, the sisters took over ownership of that site. 5 of the buildings are designated as historic landmarks, and they're shown by these blue stars. And then this area here near Highway 43 is the historic cemetery. And although it is part of Sub-Area 1, it is not subject to any development because it is protected as a historic site. This is a zoning map of the area, and I do want to emphasize that the CI, or campus institutional zone, is only found on the Marylhurst campus. There is no other CI zoned property in the city, so these amendments are limited to this campus. Actually, it's limited only to sub-area 1 of the campus. And I do want to point that out because Mary's Woods is zoned CI, but would not be affected by the proposal. This map is a map of all the sub-areas on the Marylhurst campus. And the sub-area in question, again, is sub-area 1 here, indicated by my arrow. The proposal originally included sub-area 1A2, which is this narrow area to the north of sub-area 1. However, based on extensive public testimony in opposition to inclusion of this, the applicant has voluntarily removed that from the proposed site. So it really only involves sub-area 1. And then this is the last map I want to discuss. This is the comprehensive plan map, and it shows that the comprehensive plan designation for the site is also CI. And it also shows, you'll see these hatched areas here. This is all the existing sensitive lands on the site. They've all been delineated, and they are all protected areas. And I want to note that sub-area 1 is surrounded by, except for on the Highway 43 side, with sensitive lands, all which provide screening and buffering to the lots surrounding the site. And actually, I forgot, I do have one more slide. There is a lot of interest in the future development of multifamily housing on the site, should the amendments be approved. But I want to emphasize that this application does not include any multifamily development at this time. What we're focusing on are the amendments to the comprehensive plan and the CDC that would allow multifamily residential as a permitted use in sub-area 1 of the CI zone. If approved, the applicant would need to apply for a land use application in the future for any sort of development proposal on the site. And that would require a public notice as well as a hearing before the Development Review Commission. So there will be a public process if they move forward with developing multifamily on the site. Having said that, there is a lot of, understandably, a lot of interest in where multifamily might be located on the site. And the applicant did indicate in their application that they intend, that their intention is to replace existing dormitories shown by this red circle on the map. This is 3 obsolete dormitories that the former university used, and they would, they're preliminarily planning to demolish that and build the 75 to 100 units of affordable housing there. Again, just want to reemphasize that this is not the review of that future development, but rather the code amendments. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and go back in action. So the Planning Commission had 2 public hearings in October on this application. The October 2nd staff report, which is Exhibit D1 in your packet, it analyzes and discusses compliance with all the applicable comprehensive plan policies as well as state and metro requirements in detail. And I'm not going to go through those tonight. It's all there in the report, which hopefully you were able to read. The Planning Commission did find that the proposed comprehensive plan and CDC amendments do comply with all applicable policies and requirements. There were a few issues that were raised in the Planning Commission hearings, 2 in particular that I just want to go over quickly tonight with you. All of the issues that were raised are discussed in the Planning Commission findings, conclusions, and order, which is found in Exhibit B1 of your packet. But the first issue I want to discuss is traffic. This was really the biggest issue that was raised by a lot of folks. And the Planning Commission received testimony about potential traffic impacts from the proposed development. And the main concerns were that the proposal would increase traffic congestion on Highway 43, which I'm sure you're all aware does have congestion already. And they were also concerned that the traffic study submitted by the applicants did not reflect the current state of traffic on Highway 43 because the traffic has changed since the redevelopment of the retirement community at Mary's Woods and since the former university was vested in its number of vehicle trips. Folks also pointed out that traffic patterns have changed since the COVID-19 pandemic as well. The applicant's traffic memo actually does not address any sort of background traffic on Highway 43 or on other nearby streets or intersection. Rather, what it did is it analyzed the number of peak hour trips the former university generated based on the square footage of all the 14 buildings that exist on the site. And they used the trip generation rate for a university or college from the trip generation manual that's published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, 10th edition. And so what this did is it established the vested trip generation by the former university, which has existed on the site since 1905 before it closed in 2018. So it's a long-standing use there. So what the applicant is proposing is a trip cap for all of the combined uses in sub-area 1. And that would assure that the AM and PM peak hour trips would not exceed the peak hour trips of the former university. The city's traffic engineer, as well as ODOT, concur with the findings in the applicant's traffic memo, and the Planning Commission found that the trip cap would limit any future site development to generate no more trips than the prior university use. And thus, the proposed comp plan and CDC amendments would not result in any additional traffic impacts on the existing transportation system, which is in compliance with the state transportation planning rule. I do believe that the applicant's traffic consultant is present tonight. So if you have any further questions about the traffic memo, they're available. And then as the mayor pointed out, we also do have our traffic engineer, city traffic engineer, Will Farley here tonight, who's also available to answer questions. The next issue I want to discuss is the size of the subject site. So there was a lot of concern that the multifamily would be allowed on the entire 40-acre area of sub-area 1. Also, as I mentioned before, there was quite a bit of testimony about the inclusion of sub-area 1A, but the applicant has removed that from the site, so that's no longer an issue. But what the commission found was that there's no identifiable criteria that would require them to limit the size to smaller than sub-area 1. The trip cap is effectively limiting the amount of development for all uses in that sub-area to the former university trips. And then any future multifamily housing would have to comply with all the development standards that would be applicable, including open space requirements, landscaping requirements, sensitive lands, historic, building design, and they would be required to mitigate any offsite impacts, which may include traffic, depending on the proposal that they would put forward. So the commission found that the proposal complies with the applicable review criteria, and they could find no basis to reduce the site area any further. And then the final item that I want to talk about, it wasn't really an issue that was raised, but I understand that this would probably be an issue of special interest for the council, and that's affordable housing. The proposal does include a code provision that would require any new multifamily development in sub-area 1 to meet affordability criteria, which would require a minimum of 20 multifamily units in a development, at least 10% of which have to meet affordability criteria for households earning 80% or less of area media income. And this is as determined by the Clackamas County Housing Authority. So these criteria were actually taken from the system development charges, or SDC waivers, that are currently in Chapter 39 of the City Code. And I'm sure that maybe many of you would recall that this SDC waiver was added by the council, I think a few years ago, as an incentive or a voluntary-based approach in order to encourage the development of multifamily housing units in the city. So they proposed to use those same criteria. But instead of being an incentive, they would make it a requirement for any new multifamily development in sub-area 1. The applicant, I think, is intending to actually exceed those minimum requirements, but that would, but the 10% of the units would be what would be required by code, and the applicant can speak to that later in their presentation. I also want to point out that the city's 2013 housing needs analysis concluded that the city needed to establish strategies to help ensure a range of housing prices is maintained over time, in particular to provide affordable housing for residents earning less than 80% of the median family income. And since 2013, there hasn't been any below market rate housing built since that study was done. So this proposed code amendment would allow for housing that would help meet those the need for affordable housing in the city as identified in the housing needs analysis. So in conclusion, the proposed code amendments that before you tonight, as well as the accompanying ordinance, are found in Exhibit A11 and Attachment B, which is in your packet. And it includes new code standards for multifamily use in sub-area 1 that would establish a trip cap, as I discussed, also requiring at least 10% of the units to meet affordability criteria, and would also ensure that all standards that would be applicable to the multifamily in sub-area 1 would be clear and objective, which is required by state law. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of the proposed amendments to the council, and that is what they recommend, that you approve the proposed amendments as included in Exhibit A11 Attachment B. That concludes my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And again, we have our traffic engineer too, if you have any questions about that.
Councilor O'Neill.
Jessica, do we give, or have we thought about giving trip count discounts to workforce housing. I mean, this project there at Marylhurst lends itself because I believe Marylhurst is one of our largest employers in the city. And would we give, and this might incentivize other employers, large employers that we have, to build workforce housing that would limit trip count. So maybe Will can answer that, but if we don't, I think it's something that we should look into, because I think it would really benefit, this type of housing.
Well, this particular proposal, the applicable criteria it's the state transportation planning rule, which, and I might butcher this a little bit, Will, but it's basically to prevent any new impacts to the transportation system as a rough summary of it. And so the applicant is not obligated, or the city is not obligated to provide any discount or trip count discounts to that requirement. In fact, we couldn't, because they have to show that there's no new impacts to the transportation system. So the trip cap that they're proposing does establish that. So I don't think we could provide any discounts to that. And Will, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
Not that I can think of. I haven't seen an instance of a trip count discount. Affordable housing typically has a lesser trip generation than regular housing, so that's already an account and when doing a development application. But Jessica's right that the trip cap limits everything to where there's no significant effect on the system. So that's what the applicant's working with.
Yeah, but this would be relative to workforce housing, relative to the entity who's actually building the project. So I think it's something, if it doesn't exist, should be asked, because I think it would promote people to build workhouse. Just something you should be brought up, should be discussed.
Okay, Councilor Lamont, you had a question?
Two questions. One is based on where Councilor O'Neill's going, if the sisters can show that a bulk of the new housing, say there's 50 units, 100 units, whatever, are going to be walked to work on their campus, that would be a discount right there. I mean, they're not going to count that unit for the traffic generation if 100 people walk across the field to go to work every day. Is that correct? Because that's what they had told us in that earlier presentation, that they were trying to build a lot of housing, but most of it would be for their own workers.
That would be something that could be taken account of by the traffic engineer when doing the trip generation calculations.
Yeah,
having
modifier or whatever. Yeah.
There's modifiers of internal capture. So if you have a retail component and a residential component pretty close to each other, there is recognition that someone's not going to use the transportation system in a car to drive from those 2 points, that there can be a reduction factor of people walking or biking and not using the roadway.
And then those working in our downtown or in our shopping centers off of 43 could take a bus directly to work and back to their house. So we could work on that when it comes to actually a hard development program. But Jessica, the earlier question is just to clarify that minimum amount for affordable housing. Is it 10% of the total amount of units, or 20 as a minimum, or what? How did that come about?
Well, it's both. First, you have to have at least 20 units. And then after that, all of the units, 20 and above, 10% of them have to be affordable.
Got it. And was that from us as the city or from Marylhurst? Yes. From us. Okay.
Yes, and that is taken from the SDC, the current language in the SDC waivers in Chapter 39.
Yeah. Okay.
Councilor Koha. I'm sorry, go ahead. John will get to you in just a minute.
So the only question I had was how is that really enforced? I mean, you say they're going to have a trip cap. How does that actually, other than the honesty system, the honor system, how do you know?
Well, anytime they have a development application, they're going to have to show compliance with that trip cap. So they're going to have to count for all the uses that are existing on the site, as well as the use that is proposed. And so that will be reviewed as part of the development application. For tenants where there is no requirement for a development application, they are required to get a business license, and sometimes they require tenant improvements. And so at the time that they get their business license or come in for a tenant improvements, we review it to assure that it's an allowed use in the zone and that it would meet any requirements of the code, which would include the trip cap. So we would catch it at both of those two stages, either at development or when new tenants are located in any of the buildings.
Councilor Wendley, you had a question.
Yeah, on the SDC relief, is that only applicable to if they have, for the number of units that they have for affordable housing? Or is it, do we take it, in other words, if they have 25% affordable housing, we reduce the SDC charges by 25%, or?
100%.
So they can build a project and put 10% in and have all their SDC requirements waived?
Correct.
Okay. Got it.
Any other question? Councilor Wynn.
So Jessica, that last comment you made about new tenants moving in and about reviewing the trip cap. So you're saying that if a tenant were to, I'm assuming a commercial tenant, right, a business moving in to a retail space, for example, and so you're saying that depending on the type of business, it could trigger the project going past that traffic cap or that trip cap. So at that point, is that the only time that that the tenant would be notified that their potentially their business may not be allowed to set up shop in that building? Or is there a way that we can? I mean, it seems like it's some more restrictions on general commercial that may be there that somebody that may be looking for a place to set up shop may not be aware of, and so.
Well, and it's in, as you know, the applicants own all of these buildings in this site. So it's in their best interest to monitor this and make sure that all the tenants are going to comply with this trip cap. Certainly if they do a study of those existing uses and another use that's the same as the use that was there before. So if an office replaces an office, that isn't going to change the trip cap. So there really shouldn't need to be a new analysis. It's really when you have either additional uses that aren't there currently, new uses that are replacing, different uses that existed on the site. But yeah, the sisters will need to keep on top of that. And then, yeah, at this point, that's the only place we could catch it is new development applications, business license, or tenant improvements.
Mm-hmm. I think I'd like to kind of maybe, if we can ask the staff to kind of monitor that. Certainly, if we're looking at, for example, the residents of Mary's Woods, that, for example, I'm just thinking, I'm familiar with nail salons, for example, and I know that there's some nail salons that have, or any nail salon that's opened up in Mary's Woods. And I'm assuming that the clientele that would probably be walking over from the buildings there, for example. So when we go to review business licenses and kind of review that in relation to the traffic caps, and so I think we should have somehow make that kind of top of mind that that this is not a typical strip mall environment where just because we put in a typical nail salon, for the example, the number of stations may dictate a certain number of trips. Based upon the number of stations that are in a space on the street versus something where with the primary clientele being the residents of really just a campus that most residents may not be driving very much, if at all. So if that's something we can, I don't know where we put that in, but that'd be something as we think about traffic caps and trip caps and things like that, somehow we can communicate that to the applicant and the businesses that they may try to solicit as well.
Well, and I just want to clarify that the Mary's Woods is not included in this area. It's not in sub-area 1.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that Mary's Woods has some different uses that are allowed. I don't believe nail salons would be allowed in sub-area 1 of the Marylhurst campus. So it's primarily going to be educational office uses, multifamily, congregate care, those types of uses that are allowed in the zone. I'll verify that, and I can get back to you if that's not the case, but I don't think nail salons are allowed in.
Just an example that
Yeah.
I'm happily familiar with, so.
Councilor Lamont, you have another question.
Well, just from Jessica and Scott, I mean, the bottom line is that the planning department will have the information and the data to monitor this over time. There's always going to be that cap, and they can watch the calculations, they can watch the traffic studies, they can watch the parking studies to see if anything is getting skewed. Is there more people walking? Is there more people taking transit? And the same thing with the new housing. There will be a certain limit when it gets to the point. If it's all traveling off site, that's a different number than if some people are walking over to Marylhurst. I've been involved in this across the country, and the planning departments are the ones that watch and monitor, and they're checking the cap along with the engineers. So I think we're covered when it comes to that in the long range.
Okay, are there any other questions? All right, thank you.
Mr.
Mr.
Studebaker.
Oh, hi, Mr. Siegel.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to follow up on what my colleagues have said, the trip cap, monitoring the trip cap operates very similar to how we monitor parking. So in a shopping center, there's a certain amount of parking that's budgeted for the center and the multiple tenants in there. And when there's a change of use or new business license or development application, that's when it's checked. And so there are checks and balances on the parking. And the city does have experience, or the council has approved zone changes in the past with the trip cap. The zone change at the corner of Carmen Drive and Cruz Way, you may recall, that was a change from open space zoning to a commercial designation. And because of the traffic concerns in that location, a trip cap was established there. And on the SDCs, the site, because the site has existing development on it, when development is proposed, there'll be a traffic study. Of course, it'll be evaluated at that time. Will and his staff will look at that. And there's a certain amount of traffic that is existing or considered existing, I believe, and that would be counted, would be credited in terms of SDCs. So, you know, it's not starting at zero. And in terms of traffic SDCs, given the cap that's proposed, there may not be much, if any, SDCs for traffic, but there would be SDCs for parks. And so I think that's where you would potentially forego some revenues on the parks SDCs when you see housing come into that site that didn't have housing previously. So I just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, let's go on. Ms. Linder, there are people who want to testify in favor of this.
I believe we're going into the applicant's testimony first.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we had, go ahead.
Hi, I'm actually not the one that's presenting for the applicant, but I just wanted to say that some of our speakers haven't been led into the meeting yet. So we're looking for Sister Maureen Delaney and Colin Morgan Cross. Okay, I think we've got everybody now. Thank you.
All right, good.
They're there now. Thank you.
All right, applicant's testimony.
So good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Sister Maureen Delaney, and I am currently the province leader of the Sisters of the Holy Names, and I will be in that position for the next 5 years. And we're very happy and we're very grateful to you for having us being able to present our plan about affordable workforce housing tonight. And I think I'm going to turn this over now to Sister Mary Rita, who is going to give you the plan.
Thank you.
Good evening, members of the Lake Oswego City Council. I appreciated being able to speak briefly at your May 19th meeting, and I am pleased to be here now to give you further information regarding the Society of the Sisters of the Holy Names of Jesus and Mary's desire to provide affordable workforce housing on the former Marylhurst University campus, which we have renamed Marylhurst Commons. And coming in the not too distant future, you will see a sign that actually says Marylhurst Commons. When Marylhurst University closed 2 years ago, and its ownership of the campus reverted to the Sisters of the Holy Names, we on our leadership team began a process of determining what we could do with this beautiful campus. We hired JLA to facilitate a process to gather input from a variety of groups, which led us to deciding to apply to the city to include multifamily housing as a permitted use on campus. We have engaged the Bookin Group to help with our application to the city and hired Kittleson Associates to do the required traffic study. I would like to give you more information on why we came to the decision to seek to have affordable workforce housing at Marylhurst Commons. At the beginning of our process to gather input, we listed the values on which we would base our decisions. These are the core values that guided our decisions. Service to others, particularly those who are underserved or marginalized. Historically, that meant educating children and young women. In the last 5 decades, as education became more available, we began offering other services that were going unmet. Commitment to Christian social justice principles. We sisters have always been concerned and involved with people who have been marginalized and discriminated against for a variety of reasons. Hospitality. From our founding until now, welcoming whomever comes our way has been important to us. Dedication to the full development of human persons. In our schools, we try to provide more than reading and writing, such as art and music education, athletics, counseling, etc. Collaboration with partners committed to similar values. As our number of sisters has dwindled, we have realized the value of collaborating with other agencies and people. Next, we determined the criteria to guide us in our process and decisions regarding the use of the Marylhurst Commons property. Maintain ownership of the property. Selling the property to a developer would have increased our financial resources, but we want the property to be used to meet an unmet need, which is historically what we sisters have always done, seen a need and responded. Manage the land in an environmentally sensitive manner. Our goal is to eventually be at net zero use of fossil fuel energy. Other than the hoped for affordable housing, we have no intention of constructing any other buildings. Work collaboratively with nonprofit agencies to provide specific needed services. We have neither the human nor fiscal resources to start a new ministry on campus. So whatever we do will be a collaborative effort. Base our choices and decisions on available financial resources. We will not risk going into debt. Assure that the projects located on the property can collectively cover costs of the campus operation. While we do not expect to make any money from the property, we also do not want to lose any money needed for the care of our sisters. Our vision for this property is to maintain much of the open space, preserve the 5 historical buildings, be sustainable environmentally and fiscally, and respond to some unmet need in the local area. To seek input on ways the campus could be of service, we met with 5 focus groups, a few foundations, housing organizations, and community groups. We held 2 larger sessions, first for the neighborhood associations, and then for Mary's Woods residents. When we analyzed all the input we received, we realized that the need for housing was mentioned in one way or another by every group with which we met. In an online survey of hourly workers at Mary's Woods, we learned that 54 workers were interested in living on campus. We assume there are hundreds of other workers in Lake Oswego who cannot afford to live in the city. Given the location of our Marylhurst Commons campus, we decided that providing affordable housing for workers would definitely respond to the housing need for many workers in Lake Oswego. We are grateful that you on the City Council recognize the need for affordable housing. And we appreciate very much the City Planning Department staff who have helped us get to this point in our process. One wise suggestion of the planning staff was that we have a virtual town hall with neighbors to tell them about our plans and answer their questions. 155 persons registered for our virtual town hall, which we held on July 29th. We have asked Mercy Housing Northwest to collaborate with us to determine if it might be possible for them to establish an affordable housing community toward the back of our campus. The area under consideration, which Jessica has already mentioned, is roughly within the circle shown on this map of the campus. If the rezone for multifamily housing is approved by you, the 3 older dorms at the back of the campus will need to be removed, thus making room for the affordable workforce housing without using much open space. We are familiar with Mercy Housing Northwest because of their excellent reputation of providing affordable housing communities in Washington State. Mercy Housing Northwest provides a variety of services for their residents on a long-term basis. We are asking the City of Lake Oswego to rezone our campus to include multifamily housing. We hope this process will be completed by the end of December. We understand that this step with the city is about a permitted land use, not about the design and construction of the homes. We are using the term affordable workforce housing because we desire to provide housing for people working in our Lake Oswego area who cannot afford to rent or buy here. This housing will be open to other workers in the area, not just Mary's Woods workers. The number of units under consideration is 75 to 100. What about the rest of the campus? If you have visited the campus, you have noticed that we have renovated the former faculty house to provide space for 4 to 7 sisters to live, and which will provide 17 guest rooms for hospitality when we have meetings with sisters from outside of this area. 4 sisters just moved into this house in November. There they are waving at you. What else? We will continue to lease buildings to a few nonprofit agencies. We have recently entered into an agreement with the Clackamas ESD to lease one of the buildings. We still have space to lease and will continue to look for nonprofits whose values and activities are congruent with our values and would be compatible with an affordable workforce housing community. I want to emphasize that we have no intention of selling any of the campus. We have spent a lot of money to keep the campus looking and being as lovely as it was when the university was functioning here. Now we look forward to being able to welcome residents to a new affordable workforce housing community on campus. Thank you for considering our request for multifamily housing as a permitted use on our campus. Now I turn this over to Colin Morgan Cross of Mercy Housing Northwest.
Mr. Cross, you have less than 5 minutes for the applicant's presentation. You know that?
I'll keep it very short. Thank you, Sister Margarita, and good evening councilors, and mayor. My name is Colin Morgan Cross. I'm the Director of Real Estate Development at Mercy Housing Northwest, and I also joined Sister Mary Rita at the council meeting back in May. Mercy Housing Northwest is really excited and honored to be working with the sisters to explore the potential for affordable housing on the Marylhurst campus. As Sister Mary Rita mentioned, we have a long history with the Sisters of Holy Names. They were one of our founding communities 25 years ago, and continue to serve on our board of directors. And many of the values that Sister Mary Rita mentioned are deeply embedded throughout our mission as an organization as well. Mercy currently serves over 5,000 residents every day in over 50 communities across the Northwest. We're a long-term owner, and we operate our own property management and services, meaning that once we develop housing, we stay involved long-term through operations as well. As an organization, we've built a strong track record for delivering high-quality, well-designed housing for families. And from the housing needs studies that were completed by the city, the last of which was done in 2013, we know there's a need for housing for workers in Lake Oswego. These are people you all probably see every day in your community working at Mary's Woods, coffee shops and restaurants, and other services that residents rely on and enjoy. The city benefits from their hard work and service, and we believe their lives would be enriched if they were given the opportunity to call Lake Oswego home and really to live in the community in which they work. So we're very happy to be supporting the sisters in their work and evaluating how Marylhurst campus can be a resource for all members of the Lake Oswego community, including workers and their families. And we look forward to advancing our planning work and hopefully applying for our first housing capital funding in early 2021. Thank you.
Thank you. Sister Mary Rita, is that the extent of your presentation?
I just have a quick final comment. We hope that you will be able to make the decision to have multifamily housing as a permitted use on our campus before the end of December. And that is because Mercy Housing and any other group can begin applying for funds for affordable housing that become available in early 2021. So that's why we are requesting that you would be able to make your decision to let us go ahead with this before the end of December. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Questions, Councilor Ahmad?
This one is for either Sister or Colin. When you say apply for funds, are you talking about some of the Metro bond funds that we have sitting there and we haven't applied for anything? Would that be one of your sources?
Yeah, I'll take that one. That is definitely one of the sources we're looking at. The funding for affordable housing tends to happen on different rounds on a schedule throughout the year, and it's a little bit different per source. So I'm not sure when the Metro bond money, anyway, they haven't decided when that will become available in 2021. The source that really we are thinking about is called the LIFT money. It's administered by the state of Oregon and the Housing Community Services Department.
Good. As long as we're looking at all those sources, that's great.
Absolutely.
Other questions? All right, thank you very much. Now, Ms. Linder, is there people that want to testify in favor of this proposal?
Yes, your first speaker is Ray McGovern, and he's joining the meeting right now.
Thank you. Mr. McGovern, are you there?
Ray, if you could turn your video and microphone on now.
Right now, Mr. McGovern, you're muted. Maybe we can proceed with somebody else while Mr. McGovern is.
Okay. See if Tom Fink is ready.
Can you hear me now? I'm Tom Fink.
Yes, we can.
Okay. My name is Tom Fink, and I'm from the land of cheese, trees, and ocean breeze, better known to most Oregonians as Tillamook County. My wife, Marilyn, is from Ashland, and she's had a 55-year relationship with the Sisters of the Holy Names. She first of all graduated from St. Mary's High School in Medford, and then she was a 1969 graduate of Marylhurst University. Personally, I've had about a 30-year relationship with the sisters. I'm a past board member, or I'm a current board member and past president of St. Mary's Academy. We've had 3 daughters graduate from there. And so we've had a lot of experience with the sisters, with the good days and, well, let's just say all of the good days. I really want to talk a little bit about the history of the sisters, okay? These women got on a boat in 1859 from Montreal and circled North America, South America, and landed here in Portland, or in Oregon. And 19 days later, started St. Mary's Academy. So these women have a very much of a pioneering spirit and have set the standards for education. They're a very progressive order of sisters. They get very high standards in everything they do. And when I say that, just think of Mary's Woods, you know, one of your neighbors there. All of the efforts and the values of the sisters for the last 161 years have been for the betterment of the communities where they live. They have educated and fulfilled the needs of many social, economic levels. It goes without saying that the sisters are good business people. Their history of education and housing with their history of education and housing here in Oregon and in the US. Lake Oswego, of which I have been Marilyn and I have been residents of for the past 30 years, is very fortunate to have the Sisters of the Holy Names of Jesus and Mary as their neighbors. Wish you all good health. Thank you very much for allowing me to make my comments.
You're muted, Mayor.
Ms. Linder, is Mr. McGovern able to present at this point?
I'm here if you can hear me.
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'm a 11-year resident of Lake Oswego, but I lived in the Portland area from 1996, 61 to 81 when I moved to Alaska. But anyway, I now live at Mary's Woods, and I like to speak in support of the project because having affordable workforce housing in Lake Oswego is a benefit to the city. The people who are eligible for workforce housing are the people who have to commute to their jobs in Lake Oswego. Lake Oswego is so desirable, and all the housing prices and the rents and apartments all reflects this desirability. So the city will benefit with workforce housing. The Holy Name Sisters are handing Lake Oswego an opportunity that I hate to see that they lose. The buildings will be in the back on the north end of the commons and will not be seen by most of the people in the surrounding area because of the fall of the land. If the neighbors think that this may degrade their neighborhood, they should look at what they did with the university, what they did with Mary's Woods, what they did with the expansion of Mary's Woods. All of this raised the community, not degraded it. When they built Mary's Woods, which is just a bunch of retirees, but all of us have money and we spend it in the local areas. The same thing will happen with affordable housing. These people have to shop and live in Lake Oswego. That is where they're going to spend their money. The sisters have always been high scale. I don't always agree with them, but they're always high scale. They have the commons. They leave people trespass on it to walk their dogs, ride bikes, whatever. They maintain that at quite a high cost. It's not, the last figure I heard was almost $700,000 a year to maintain that property to do nothing. So putting the property into use, bringing in people who can live there, work in Lake Oswego, and when you talk about traffic, these are not the people who run out to work at 7 and 8 in the morning. These will be a lot of shift workers, and I'm getting a light, so I will end it with that. But I think Lake Oswego needs this, and I strongly support it.
Thank you, Kurt. Ms. Linder, are there other people who want to testify in favor of this application?
Yes, Nicole John is joining the meeting.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm
Hello,
Nicole
Nicole.
Diamond John. I'm a commercial real estate broker with Capacity Commercial Group, and I'm currently working on the retail leasing at Mary's Woods. Additionally, I was on the committee that oversaw the development of the retail buildings at Mary's Woods. I grew up in Lake Oswego in the Marylhurst neighborhood across the street from the Marylhurst campus, and I moved back to Lake Oswego several years ago. I spent a lot of time walking through the campus and even took ballet lessons in one of the buildings when I was a little girl. I am speaking today in support of the amendment to the current zoning code to allow for affordable multifamily housing at Marylhurst, which would ease the shortage that we are currently experiencing. With every project the sisters approach, they always take extra care to make sure it aligns with their long-term vision for the campus and its connection to the surrounding community. Education and care have always remained at the forefront of their mission. This project would provide the opportunity for affordable housing for the greater Lake Oswego community and for those who work at Mary's Woods. With 400 people working at Mary's Woods, this could alleviate some traffic we see on Highway 43 with the proximity of people being able to walk from their home to the Mary's Woods campus. I believe this project would provide a positive impact on the quality of life for those who live there by providing opportunities for intergenerational living, outside recreation, and providing a home for many people who work in Lake Oswego. I also believe this project would provide many opportunities to develop and enhance the connection with the campus and the greater community. This was also our intention when we were developing the retail component at Mary's Woods. The sisters do not want the Marylhurst campus to become densely developed. If you know the sisters, you know it is very important to them that the campus retains the flow and openness that the built environment currently provides, and to maintain the natural beauty that the campus offers. It is their plan to preserve the historic buildings on the campus and for the new buildings to complement the existing architecture. They have cared for this land for many years, and it is their plan to continue to do so while living out their mission. In order for this to be a successful project, the sisters need the space and flexibility to provide the proper services and amenities to support the buildings and the future residents. Putting unnecessary restrictions would affect their ability to do so. The goal for their potential project is to simply provide much needed affordable housing by replacing older rundown buildings. I see this as a positive improvement, which is why I support this amendment to the zoning code. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Further, Ms. Linder?
Yes, Mark is joining the meeting now.
Mr. Stosur, are you there? Mr. Stosur? You're muted if you're there.
Hello, hello? Can you hear me now?
We can, thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. At this point, I feel like I should probably have a black hat on, or maybe hire someone else to start my car tomorrow. But I'll go ahead anyway. Should I assume that the email I sent to Terry has been read, or should I read that?
I think you should assume we've all read it.
Okay. You know, again, when we first came here, 43 was, you know, flowed very, very finely. I mean, just every day was no big deal. But with each passing 5 years, it's gotten worse. And while I understand you've got trip counts and all these types of measurements, you're measuring students who were leaving at earlier hours. You know, I tried to impress upon the Planning Commission that you've got to see this with your own eyes.
Wait, just a minute, please.
Sure.
You are testifying in opposition to the proposal, is that correct?
Well, yes, and technically the whole thing, yes. But we're not against.
Just a minute. Ms. Linder, is there anyone else who wanted to testify in favor of the proposal that hasn't already done so?
No, Mayor.
Okay, so we're at the point of present. Go ahead, Mr. Stosur. I just want to make sure.
No, I understand, Mr. Mayor. No problem. Like I said, I get the impression I'm on an island here.
No problem. Go ahead.
It's not that we oppose it. In fact, in my email, we stated that we're all for the affordable housing where they want to build it. But with all due respect to the sisters, if you open up the entire area, we're going to be here in a year or 2 years, or when the next opportunity presents itself, whether it's this group or another group that can build housing. And what? Yeah. I mean, Northwest seems like an outstanding group, and we're all for that. But you know, part of us is concerned that COVID-19 has kind of reset the vision of what's been going on here. And prior to it, 43 was a disaster. And if you go up, so was McVeigh because of the backup. And getting onto 205, I don't know if any of you have ever done that or tried to head to the airport at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's turned into an hour and 15 minutes. It used to be 20 minutes. I just think that unless you've really seen what we're dealing with around here, and so it's not so much this initial thing that I'm here to you know, be against. I think it's an outstanding opportunity, is in particular for the employees of Mary's Woods. But I've seen it in my life. You know, what's the old line? You give someone an inch, they're going to take a yard. I mean, the bottom line is I have this vision 10 years from now of looking across the street and seeing a condo right on across the street from me. And to me, and then I have not heard one person talk about the Lake Oswego School Board, but I put 2 kids through, and I know it really well. Helen Ann is bursting at the seams as we speak. So I think that without looking at some of those type of things outside of the first thing, that we're not giving, you know, I can't see that thing anymore. Is that like 45 seconds? Anyway, you know, yes, I did. You know, we support the Northwest Mercy effort and want to see that housing, but I don't understand why you just can't rezone that section for now and re-evaluate the balance of the land down the road. That's pretty much in the end what our real concern is. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else, Ms. Linder?
Yes, Carolyn Jones is entering the meeting.
Thank you. Carolyn, right now you're muted. Carolyn, you're still muted. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a second. She'll call on you when she's ready. I think she did. Because this fellow is still talking. I can hear him. Sorry, I can't hear him.
Go ahead.
You know. I'm ready to go if you are.
Yes, we are. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I'm Carolyn Jones. I live at 2818 Poplar Way. I've been in the neighborhood of the Marylhurst campus for many years. Moved here in the early 70s. And I'm a little astounded at how fast this project is rushing through City Hall. It's unprecedented, in fact. And I did send in a letter, an email, asking for disclosure on bias and potential conflict of interest. Didn't hear anything back. I'm curious to know if you received the email.
Yes, we did.
Okay. This is a quasi-judicial hearing, as Jessica stated, for the purposes of amending the comp plan. And it's a major development. According to the review procedures, section 50.07.003, the Lake Oswego Code, a pre-application should have been held. It was not. A neighborhood meeting should have been held. It was, but Glen Murray was excluded. The neighborhood meeting had a good turnout from Westland. I found it unusual in the notes, however, that they had a big turnout. All of the people who came were clocked from the minute they moved in the meeting room till the meeting was over. It's kind of unusual, and it suggests high control. Jessica mentioned, or it's been brought up that affordable housing will be built. I've noticed there's a contradiction in the paperwork. They started out with low-income housing and now we're at affordable housing. Makes quite a difference because affordable housing assumes a salary of $60,000. When I would argue that the people who really need housing at this time are more low income. Also, another contradiction I found with the review procedures. In development, the development permit application must be filed within 1 year from the date of the pre-application conference. If the development permit application is not filed within 1 year, a new pre-application conference is required unless the applicant requests the city manager to approve a waiver of the additional pre-application conference.
Excuse me, Mayor. I understand. I don't think that any of these issues about the pre-application requirements and so forth were raised below the Planning Commission. Again, I'll rely on staff to correct me if I'm wrong. If that's the case, this would be new issues here at the council level, which would not be permitted. Maybe Ms. Namalu could weigh in, but I understand that was not raised below.
Well, that brings up something that I'm very concerned about. Marylhurst is an exclusive effort, not inclusive. A former student described them as a totalitarian effort. And that disturbs me because we are supposed to be a democracy where free speech and open communication carries on. And I'm just not seeing that here. That combined with the time that this is moving forward, the pace at which this is moving forward in unprecedented conditions of the COVID virus, suggests something very fishy is going on here. Anyway, back to the affordable housing, which assumes a salary of 60,000 and 10% units must be built, but we haven't addressed what the zoning will be. So that we can understand how many units can be put over there. I'm concerned that it's going to be set up so that they can just squeeze every dime that they can out of it. I haven't been treated well by the sisters at all. They did try to take my house at one point through a phony foreclosure. My last issue is the tax-free status. I spoke with an appraiser at the Clackamas County office. He said that Marylhurst is the only nonprofit that seems to have gone corporate, but is still getting the tax-free status. And this whole project suggests in my mind why that's what's going on here. We think of the economy as one big abstract space where money floats around, but it's not that way. You can see the difference if you look at our budgeting process and how the budget committee sets up the budget, and so we know how much we need to make ends meet, and that's divided among the people as taxes. Well, if someone isn't paying their taxes, then that causes everyone else's to go up a bit.
Ms. Jones.
The problem with that is I see that as a donation, a forced donation by the state.
Time, Ms. Jones.
One more statement. I firmly believe in freedom of speech. I should be able to choose which religions I donate to, rather than have it forced on me, which church to support. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any other people who wish to testify, Ms. Linda?
No, Mayor.
All right, Sister Mary Reedy, as an applicant, you have 5 minutes for rebuttal.
I don't know if anyone from our team feels like they want to say something. It looks like maybe Debbie Cleek.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just like to spend a minute rebutting some of the comments that came in from the public testimony. First off, we have been involved in this process since I believe the sisters started talking to the city about it in April of this year, and we did have a pre-app with the city on June 12th of 2020. So we have followed the procedure. And it has not been an unprecedentedly fast process. We have been in application for 6 months. I mean, I think we are benefiting from the fact that there's less development happening right now because of COVID, but it hasn't been an unprecedentedly fast. It's followed all of the timelines set out in the Community Development Code. And I think Colin spoke to the reason why we are trying to get this finished by the end of the year, because there's a lot of funding opportunities that open up next year, and we need to be able to show that the property is properly zoned for multifamily before being eligible to apply for those funding sources. Let's see. So I think that does cover everything. Glenmore was included in the virtual town hall. We followed all of the procedures in the Community Development Code in terms of posting the site, notifying neighbors. It's not in the Glenmore neighborhood, it's in its own, Marylhurst is a neighborhood in and of itself, but I do believe that Glenmore was included in the early meetings and in the town hall. And then finally, I did want to say that we do have Chris Bremer with Kittleson Engineering here, who helped us devise the trip cap and figure out how that would be calculated, and could speak more to how that would be looked at when new uses come in. And I think that's everything. I want to say, again, we've talked quite a bit about the site size. And really, the reason we came in the door with a 40-acre site is because that is how the code is written. It's the Marylhurst University Subdistrict, which is Appendix E of the zoning code has specific subdistricts. The entire Marylhurst area is divided into subdistricts, and each subdistrict has specific development requirements that apply to it. There isn't any smaller geographical area that we can apply this amendment to. There's no logical boundary or partition of that 40 acres. So there wasn't anything smaller that we could grab a hold of. Additionally, the sisters want to maintain flexibility. They have not come up with a development plan or even, they're working with Mercy, but they haven't hired Mercy to build this housing. So they want to maintain flexibility because they want to be able to have this be the best multifamily housing that they can provide, which might mean parking lots, outdoor amenities, recreational areas, all of which take site area. And so to artificially construct the area of the site right now before there's even a plan on the table just doesn't seem to make sense. And as Jessica mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, there isn't any comprehensive plan policies that support making a smaller site or applying the amendments to the smaller site. So with that, I'd like to conclude, and I just appreciate your time hearing this, and I'm looking forward to hearing your deliberations. Thank you.
There are no more witnesses to testify, Ms. Linder?
No.
In that case, I'll make a motion that we approve Ordinance 2855. Councilor Mott, seconded. All right, discussion? Councilor Nguyen?
I just want to say, Sister Mary Rita, thank you so much for your presentation, and thank you for answering many of the questions I had. I have to say I have a very special place in my heart for Marylhurst University. Both my wife and I both went to that campus many evenings, and both attained our MBAs from that university. So, and spent many nights in the Showen Library. So you've given me a hope that that you'll maintain that BP John building and the Showen Library. Those are my two favorite buildings on the campus. And so with that commitment, I would fully support your request to do something with multifamily housing. So that was something that I was very concerned about, that how do we maintain the beautiful campus? And it really is a jewel. And so if you're some way able to provide some affordable housing for workforce, and at the same time maintain this jewel that we have in our own backyard, that's something that I would wholeheartedly support. So that's not a question, but so much more of a comment.
Councilor Lamar?
I'm in the same boat as that. I think this is an excellent proposal, and I think the opposition forgets that doing affordable housing is hard, and you have to set the stage early. You can't wait until the development comes, when Mercy or somebody comes along and says we're ready to go, and then, oh, we have to go get the zoning changed. That's going to add another couple of years to it. So what the sisters are really doing is setting the stage, getting all the zoning, comp plan, development code issues out now, and it allows Mercy to go and find funds to get these projects going. So that's all it is. And then when a project comes, it still goes through the planning department to see how it fits in the campus. And 40 acres is really not 40 green acres. There's a lot of development in there of existing buildings that aren't going to be torn down, and parking and roads. So I think this is excellent. The more we can move it along, the better. And I wholeheartedly support it.
All right. Councilor Mans?
I appreciate the creativity of the sisters in repurposing Marylhurst University that unfortunately was forced to cease operation. It does show that the mission of the sisters remains solid after all these years, and that your emphasis on art and creativity is certainly alive within the way that you look at your campus. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilor Kohlhoff?
It's just a quick comment. I enjoyed listening to Mr. Fink and his history of the sisters. I went to Holy Child Academy, which was always understood to be horrifying next to St. Mary's, where people were socially, better, and they sang better. And Holy Child is now long extinct, and may St. Mary's keep going.
Okay, anybody else have any comments they need to make? Councilor Wendland. Councilor Wendland, go ahead. You're muted.
I'm off now. Hey, I think the great project. I just want to echo what the other councilors have said. One of the things that I think we have to look at as a community like Oswego is affordable housing. And this gives us a win-win. And I believe that traffic studies aside, we're going to have traffic issues on 43 that are completely out of our control because of other communities. And this small contribution to the Marylhurst campus is really a trade. You're trading college kids that are partying to adults who are living. And so I think it's an upgrade. So actually, I think, we're going to have a great community up there. We already do. And I'm 100% behind the sisters. So go sisters.
All right, is there anything else? Mr. Powell, are you going to make a comment or are you going to say something later?
Well, if the deliberations are over, I have a procedural matter, and that is your motion was correct as it was stated on the agenda, but the agenda motion was different from the recommended one on the report, which is to tentatively approve LU 200016 and direct staff to present findings, conclusions, and order, and the final version of ordinance 2855 for adoption on December 15th. So if you as the maker and Councilor Lamont as the second would accept that as an amendment, I think that would be the better motion, so we get findings ready for you.
Yes.
Will you accept that, Councilor Lamont?
Yes.
That's a lie. All right, call the roll, please.
Mayor Studebaker.
Yes.
Councilors Lamont,
Yes.
Wendland,
Yes.
Mans,
Yes.
Kohlhoff,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
and Nguyen.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right, the next item is business is item 4.2 regarding master fees and charges. I think, Mr. Cross, are you here to talk about that?
He's joining the meeting now.
I am, Mayor.
Well, while he's joining the meeting here, if I may, this also is a public hearing, if I may do, although it's a briefer announcement.
Yes.
All right, this is a public hearing on ordinance, excuse me, it's not ordinance, resolution 20-33, the 2021 master fees and charges schedule. The public hearing process is outlined in the agenda, which is beginning with the staff report. Then the testimony is 3 minutes per individual, followed by any question to staff and deliberations. As it's not land use, we're not going to go through the normal admonishments there, but as always, if any counselors have a conflict of interest, it should be declared. Otherwise, we would begin with the staff report.
Mr. Powell, before you start, are you gonna, is there a modification of this thing that I should know about before proposing one way or the other?
Okay, and I missed that, Mayor. I'm sorry.
That's all right. It was just a smart remark. Never mind.
All right.
Mr. Cross, are you ready to present?
Sorry about that. One of my kids was printing something, so I turned off the printer for the noise.
He already presented. He's done.
No, so fellow counselor, mayor, counselors. So I came before you about 2 weeks ago on November 17th for a study session on master fees and charges. There were no changes, so these documents, the red line and everything, are identical to what you saw 2 weeks ago. So I really don't have any presentation, but I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
Questions of Mr. Cross? All right, hearing none. Is there any testimony? Anybody want to testify in favor of this?
No, Mayor.
Anybody want to testify?
Can I move? Oh.
Anybody want to testify at all on this?
Can I move to adopt
Wait a minute,
resolution?
wait a minute, I haven't had an answer yet. Is there anyone who wants to testify on this at all, Ms. Linder?
No, Mayor.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Linder.
I'd like to move to adopt resolution 20-33.
Number second.
Second.
Councilor Mann seconded that. All right, discussion? Councilor Kohlhoff. You're muted, Councilor Kohlhoff, you're muted right now.
Sorry.
Thank you.
I just have two things that I'd like to say. I'm going to vote for this, but I really think that it is useful for the next council or the next time this goes round that, and I told Finance Director Cross that I would like to see him discuss again the transportation SDCs that are too low.
Okay.
And to review how they should come up to speed with other jurisdictions so that you have enough money to actually do the trails and routes to school and whatnot that are going to be stalled because you don't have the revenue for it. Secondarily, I'd like to see people reassess the low amount for the tree fund. When you balance what you're taking down in the value of that and the pittance of the fee, you really are giving up an opportunity to make people pause before they remove trees. And this is a type of activity that would not require changes in the development code. So like I say, those are two things that remain bothersome to me, but it's going to be for the new council to look at that.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? All right, we have a motion that's been made and seconded. Mr. Powell, do we have to ask for any other people who want to testify on this? All right, Ms. Linder, is there anyone who wants to testify on this matter that you know of?
No, Mayor.
All right, then the hearing is closed. We have a motion that's been made and seconded. Would you call a roll? Oh, wait a minute. Is there any discussion besides what Ms. Kohlhoff had to say? All right, Ms. Linder, will you call a roll?
Mayor Studebaker,
Yes.
Councilors Lamont,
Yes.
Winland,
Yes.
Mans,
Yes.
Kohlhoff,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
and Nguyen.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Fine. The next item for public hearing is a resolution for adopting a supplemental budget. Mr. Cross, can you enlighten us?
Yes, that's me again. So when I was doing the mid-biennium review for our annual financial report for the auditors, I noticed one of our funds needed a budget adjustment. That's really the public art fund. So back after we approved the budget, I don't know, 18 months ago, back in May, June of last year for the biennium, we'd only appropriated $260,000 for a contract with the Arts Council. After that, their contract was renewed, but it was renewed for a greater amount. So that was one of the items that needed to be done, is so we can pay them this year to adjust the amount that's actually appropriated in the budget. The second item is for the art, as part of the percent for arts for City Hall. Those funds were appropriated in the project itself, but not actually in the public art fund, where it gets transferred from, in this case, it would be Laura or the general fund. They appropriate funds into the public art fund, and then the actual art is purchased from the public art fund. That hadn't been done yet either, as part of the initial budget that we approved back in June. So those are the two things that really need to be done for us to actually pay the Arts Council and to purchase the art for the City Hall project, for it's supposed to be, sometime around March. The other item is kind of a preemptive in the trying to set up a fund, a capital project fund as for the Parks, Recreation, and Aquatic Center. I know the IG hasn't been approved yet, but we want to put it in its own separate fund to make it very transparent, like we did with LO Tiger, so Tiger could see everything that was done on that project. We want to do the same thing with something that we will have joint with the school district, so they can also see it. And it's the only thing in that fund is just the capital project portion of it. So that's the three items on the supplement. That's
Questions of Mr. Cross?
I'll move.
I'm sorry.
It's a
Mr.
public
Mayor.
hearing.
I've got to hear,
Oh,
I got to hear if there are any questions. Does anybody want to testify on this, Ms. Linder?
No, Mayor.
Not for or against, correct?
Nope.
Okay, well, then the hearing is closed. Now, go ahead, Mr. Lamont.
I will move to adopt Resolution 20-36, modifying the biennial budget for 2019 through 21 through a supplemental budget.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Studebaker,
Yes?
Councilors Lamont,
Yes.
Wendland,
Yes.
Mans,
Yes.
Kohlhoff,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
and Wynn.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
All right. Let's take a break for about 10 minutes. We'll be back at 10 after 8.
All right, we're ready, Mayor.
All right, this meeting of the Lake Oswego City Council is back in session, and we're going to go on to council business. The first item is an ordinance annexing in city property one parcel consisting of 2.28 acres at 5950 Southwest Harrington. I'd like to offer this opportunity, since you recuse yourselves at the hearing, Councilor Lamont and Councilor Claw, to give you an opportunity to recuse yourself if you think that's appropriate now.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Powell, would you have anything further to say
Yes,
on this?
That's fine. They could recuse themselves, and if you're ready, I'll give a brief report.
Please.
We are not asking that they be pulled out of the panel, since this is probably a very short matter, as long as they don't participate.
Yes, that's fine.
Again, as you announced, this ordinance 28 to 52, you had on November 3rd, you had a public hearing on the proposal to annex the property at 5950 Harrington Avenue and portions of the rights of way for Harrington and Mellon Avenues. And this ordinance finalizes that tentative decision and adopts findings and conclusions. Be happy to answer any questions. Otherwise, the staff recommendation is to enact ordinance 2852.
Questions, anybody? All right, then I'd make a motion, we adopt ordinance 2852.
Second.
Okay. Councilor O'Neill seconded. Any discussion? All right. Ms. Linda, will you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mayor Studebaker,
Yes.
Councilors Winland,
Yes.
Mans,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
and Wynn.
Yes.
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. The next item is resolution 20-38 regarding solid waste recycling and organics collection. I understand Ms. Lepian wants to say something at this point.
Yes, and she's joining the meeting now.
Okay.
Am I there?
Yes, we are. Welcome.
Okay. Hi.
What did you say your name is?
Sorry?
I'm not sure we know you. You haven't been around so long.
I know, that's how I feel too. And I want to say that I'm sad this will probably be the last time that I'll see a few of you. It's been a real pleasure over the past few years.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor and Councilors, Resolution 2038 is the approval of the solid waste recycling and organics collection rates, which are generally the same as what you reviewed at a study session in November. There was one slight change. In 2018, we approved a recycling surcharge that has been on customer bills since 2018. And we recently learned from Metro and Clackamas County that it is unlikely that these rates are ever going to change as far as recycling is concerned. And we approved it in the hopes that someday it would come off of customer bills, and that's very unlikely. And so the advice is that we just roll it into our rates. And so from the customer point of view, nothing will be different because they have been charged this $2.50 surcharge on their bills. We're just now rolling it into the rates, so it's not listed as a separate line item on their bills. And so the only difference between what you reviewed at the study session and what you're reviewing now is that I have asked for Public Services to add that surcharge into their rate calculations as part of the rate sheet. And that will simplify it. The calculations for adding the surcharge to commercial bills in particular was very complicated because it was per yard. And if you have a 1.3 yard container that gets picked up 4 times a week, you do the math and it gets a little bit complicated for people to really understand what they're being charged, whereas this really simplifies it. So that's the only change between the study session and what you're reviewing right now. And that was what I wanted to communicate to you and clarify for you this evening. So if you have any questions.
I have one. You said before this was listed as a separate item and had not changed in a long time. If you roll it into the rates and then you have an increase in the rates of, let's say, 4% or 5%, would that also be a 4 or 5% increase in this 250?
No, the surcharge should stay the same. So Clackamas County has advised us that the costs of recycling since this was approved in 2018 haven't really changed. There are changes in other aspects of solid waste, but that 250 will now become part of the rate. And then, in 2 years, most likely or maybe before that, when Republic comes looking for another rate increase, they'll be doing it off of the base rates that we're approving tonight.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions? Okay, I'd entertain a motion with regard to this matter.
Can I move to adopt resolution 2038?
You can.
Please do.
A resolution of the City Council of the City of Lake Oswego authorizing an increase in the solid waste recycling and organics collection rates by Republic Services of Lake Oswego.
All right. Is there a second? I'll second it. All right, discussion on this matter? All right, would you call a roll, Ms. Linda?
Yes. Mayor Studebaker,
Yes?
Councilors Lamont,
Yes.
Wendland,
Yes.
Mance,
Yes.
Kohlhoff,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
and Wynn.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 7-0.
The next item of business is item 5.3, which is regarding the Adult Community Center Rehabilitation Project. And I think Mr. Anderholm wants to present on this. Is that correct?
Yes, Ivan's joining the meeting now.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Ivan Anderholm, Parks and Recreation Director. I'm here to speak about the item before you regarding the Adult Community Center Rehabilitation Project. Just a little bit of the history. In 2011, the department initiated and the city initiated a study to look at the Adult Community Center, which was built in 1970. To see how it was serving the current needs of older adults in the community. That report came out, and at that time, the city did not have the resources to make some of the major changes that were highlighted in that report. In 2018, the department initiated hiring an architect to prepare 30% design development documents to accurately forecast what the cost of the improvements, not only in the 2011 report, but also due to mechanical failures that we were seeing on a regular basis. We were seeing both electrical and plumbing failures on an annual and sometimes multiple times in a year basis at the center. After doing so, we approximated the cost of renovation of the center to bring it up to snuff and to give it a facelift. The March 3rd, well, actually, I'll go back to May 2019, we passed, the voters passed the Parks bond. And as part of that, we spoke to and engaged with the community about projects that the community would like to see forwarded should the park bond pass. And one of the projects was renovation and improvements of the Adult Community Center. The Parks Board took a look at that and the data from their community engagement along with other projects and presented their recommendations for projects to be funded by the Parks Bond to the City Council. And at the March 3rd, 2020 City Council meeting, staff was giving the direction to hire or to seek hiring an architectural engineering consultant to provide 100% construction documents for the project. We have done that through COVID. We have engaged in the public. We have made that happen. So what we have before you now is based off of those plans. We have taken that out to a competitive bid. The project itself is going to include new HVAC system, new electrical systems, proper restrooms on multiple levels of the building, a new entry and lobby space that meets the needs of older adults, a reconfiguration of office spaces to bring our staff that are at the Adult Community Center to one level, so that when a client comes into the center, we're not calling somebody from the bottom corner basement office to provide services to those individuals. We are also redesigning the program spaces based on the 2011 and public engagement, so that the program spaces will be more adequate for the types of programs that we anticipate providing at the center. We will be improving our wayfinding, circulation, and the slowest elevator in Lake Oswego will no longer be the slowest elevator in Lake Oswego. So with that, I'm very excited to bring this forward. This is the first capital project, construction project for bond funding that we're bringing to the council for approval. And the other point that I want to make out is that our anticipated budget back in 2019 and 2020, as we're moving forward, was about $3 million our estimate was about $3 million for the renovation. The project, based on the low bid that we're bringing to the council this evening, and including the design and engineering fees that we've paid for the project, the total project has come in at $2,211,575. So it's substantially lower than the $3 million estimate. But what we're asking for is authorization for the city manager to sign a contract in the amount of $1,774,960 for completion of the rehabilitation of the Adult Community Center. And with that, I'll answer any questions.
Yeah, questions, Mr. Anderholm? Council Winland.
Director, on talking about the elevator, I noticed in your report that it's repairing or updating. Because we had money allocated, do we really need to replace it? Or is it, I mean, will this, in other words, are we going to have to spend more money 5 or 10 years from now for the elevator? Because elevators are really expensive, and it's better to eat the costs up front, because there's a lot of maintenance and everything else. And they are our most fragile citizens. I don't want anyone to ever get stuck in the elevator. So is there need to replace it? Would that be a better path?
So we relied heavily on actually our elevator experts on that. And their feeling was that the encasement that the elevator's in the general structure of the elevator is very sound. What the improvements to it will be a whole new operating system, including new doors. So it's basically, we're calling it a rehabilitation, but really we're using the shaft and we're replacing pretty much the rest of the elevator. And that is included in this bid. And that was based off of a recommendation from from people who build and install elevators, as opposed to replace the whole thing.
Great, thank you. And it's and the City Hall is the second slowest elevator in Lake Oswego. But anyway, so good.
Yes.
And that will be remedied in March.
Yes.
Other questions? All right. Do I hear a motion on this?
I've got a comment, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Mayor, Councilor Wynn has a question.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you raising your hand.
No
Go
worries,
ahead.
no worries. It's not so much a question, it's just a general comment that I think I'm going to make this comment once, because there's going to be 2 other items that are going to be on the agenda tonight that relate to construction. So overall, I'm very pleased that we're able to come under the $3 million budget in terms of construction and design. So that's a positive. But I think going forward, I think that hopefully with new council, I think that with these 3 projects, we've got the Adult Community Center, we've got the contract for personal services for the Blue Heron project, and also the restroom. So basically, between those 3 projects, we've got about close to $3.5 million worth of construction work that's going to be awarded by the city. and I was trying to look for what the RFP criteria was, but I didn't see it specifically. But I would like to see, maybe as we move into with the new council with the procurement practices, that we make a more concerted effort to bring in a local business. I know that for this particular project here, for the adult community center, that it's a Lake Oswego based firm, which is great. I'd love to keep the jobs, love to keep the money here. But also with other projects too, if we're able to incorporate into our RFP documents, how do we look for opportunities to bring in smaller firms and emerging businesses? I look at the last project we have with the restrooms at the at Waluga, and although those are prefabricated structures, I look at line item for demolition, for example, it's about $25 demolition. Just looking for opportunities for us to maybe have the contractors that come with proposals to the city make more of a concerted effort to try to figure out how do we incorporate smaller firms along with the work that we're awarding. So we as a city, I mean, this is just in one council meeting where we're approving 3 projects that has potential to create a lot of jobs, a lot of economic activity for people to live here in this community. So just a comment, I'll say it once and I won't say it again on those 2 other projects, but that's my position on it. So if future councilors elect and future mayor, that's something that I'll be asking more if you'll consider that. So that's my comment.
Any other comments or questions? All right, would you call the roll, please?
Is there a motion?
We have a motion. I'd like to move to authorize the city manager to sign a construction contract with Cascade Corporation for $1,774,960 for the rehabilitation of the adult community center.
Second.
Okay, I thought there had been a motion, but go ahead now.
Mayor Studebaker,
Yes.
Councilors Lamont,
Yes.
Winland,
Yes.
Mans,
Yes.
Kohlhoff,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
and Wynn.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Next
And
item.
thank you, Ivan. Well done.
Thank you, Ivan. Next item on our agenda is a consent agenda. And I would like to note that we're not going to have a declaration vote until December 15, where we're making sure we have all the votes counted and tabulated. So it'll be December 15 when we have the declaration. Yes, Councilor Windman.
Can I get 6.3 out of the consent agenda? I'm sorry, I didn't realize it was in there.
Sure. So the consent agenda now is item 6.1, a contract engineering for Blue Heron, and approval of minutes.
As well as item 6.5.
I'm sorry?
As well as item 6.5.
Yes, that too.
Okay.
Move to accept the consent. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No,
Councilor,
go ahead.
please.
Council President, go ahead.
Move to approve the consent agenda, which will include item 6.1, 6.4, and 6.5.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All right. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Studebaker,
Yes?
Councilors Lamont,
Yes.
Winland,
Yes.
Mans,
Yes.
Kohlhoff,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
and Wynn.
Yes.
All right, Councilor Wendland, you want to remove 6.3 from the agenda, from the consent agenda. That's the award of the contract for demolition and reconstruction of restrooms at Lower George Rogers Park and East Beluga Park.
Yes, I guess I just have a question. Why are we spending $81,000 per stall for bathrooms? I just think that is can I sign up and actually Councilor Wen and I can probably put them in for.
Carrie, do you want to let Ivan back in?
Yes, he's joining the meeting now.
Thank you.
I'll go local. I'll go local on that. I know that we get this discount from them, but it was a $6,000 discount. on a $600,000 project, that's not much of a discount, but can you explain, I understand they have, my questions on it, while I'm all for ADA bathrooms, why do all 4 or all 8 in the park have to be ADA? Because aren't those more expensive, and would it be more cost effective to build 2 of those stalls and then 6 of regular stalls? I don't know. Can you help explain why it's costing so much money for so few bathrooms?
I can attempt to explain that. So why they're ADA and why they are all people accessible restrooms is that the trend in public spaces and public outdoor spaces is to make restrooms, instead of gender specific, to be specific to anyone's use. The cost is based on square footage. This particular, and although it seems expensive for 2 restrooms in 2 parks, we did have the luxury of working through another project, which was the Iron Mountain project, where there was a restroom installed that was installed as a site-built restroom. And as we were working through that, prior to making the decision to go with this process to get these restrooms, we found that the built-in place restroom, which is very similar to what we're doing here in Iron Mountain Park, minus the roof that's over the bike racks, was significantly more expensive per square foot. Part of the issue that we're dealing with, and not to get into too many details, is that the style of construction for these restrooms right now is CMU block, which has exceeded a lot of other building materials because of lack of labor to do it. So we are seeing that. We looked at different ways of how we could save money on these. And then the other is, as legislation moves forward and we're responsible for providing safe restrooms of this cooperative agreement, my experience has been, and why we took advantage of the Iron Mountain and while we were doing that project with a contractor, is we wanted to price check what the cooperative agreement was. So we had the opportunity to do that in real time in a real project. We didn't include utilities to the site. It was basically the building that they were putting up, and that's when we price checked it. It was more affordable for us to go this route than to take it out for a bid. And we had real-time information when we made that decision to use this prearranged bid. So,
Any other questions? All right, then
I reluctantly moved toward the cooperative procurement contract with Romentech Incorporated for the sum of $653 or $653,648.06 for the replacement of the 8 restrooms at or 4 restrooms at Lower George Rogers Park and 4 restrooms at East Beluga Park.
Is there a second? Okay, I'll second it. Go ahead. Any further discussion? Go ahead and call the roll then, please.
Okay, Mayor Stuerbicker,
Yes.
Councilors Lamont,
Reluctantly, yes.
Wendland,
Same, yes.
Mans,
Yes.
Kohlhoff,
Yes.
O'Neill,
Yes.
and Wynn.
Yes.
Okay, motion passes 7-0.
All right. Next is information from council. Does anybody have anything they want to enlighten us with? All right. Any reports of officers? In that case, I will say that we are adjourned, and I wish you all happy Merry Christmas. We'll see you on the 15th, if not before. Thank you very much, everybody.